To Phil LeBeau now. He's joined by the Mercedes-Benz USA CEO. Phil, take it away.
Thank you, Scott. Dimitri Soulakis, thank you very much for joining us in Mercedes' new flagship dealership in Manhattan, and with the new CLA, which we're going to be talking about here in just a little bit. This is a big day for you guys as they take off the tarp here. We're going to talk about that in a bit, but let me ask you first of all what you're noticing in terms of demand, given the tariffs that are in place now, and what you're going to be doing about pricing.
So it's true that in the last 3-4 weeks, our life has changed.
So we might be in the Formula One off-season, but the world of motorsport is abuzz with growing speculation that 7-time world champion Lewis Hamilton is set for a shock move from Mercedes to Ferrari for the 2025 season.
Some Mercedes-Benz owners regret pulling the trigger on their luxury dream car. And it's not just about the price tag, it's what happens after you sign. From surprise depreciation hits to dealership tactics designed to milk you for every penny, there are industry secrets no one's talking about. So if you're thinking of financing a Mercedes or already have, this video might save you thousands, maybe more. Most buyers get hooked by the hidden lease trap Mercedes dealers use. Here's the first red flag most people don't even notice until it's way too late. Mercedes dealerships love to offer what seem like generous lease deals, low monthly payments, low upfront cost, and the prestige of driving a Benz. Sounds good, right? But what they're not telling you is that these lease deals are structured to maximize short-term appearances while stacking long-term consequences against you. Most drivers don't realize that Mercedes builds in artificially low residual values into many of their lease contracts. Why does that matter? Because the residual value determines what your car will be worth at the end of the lease. And if it's lower than the car's actual market value, you're overpaying. But if it's too high, which sometimes happens, especially with sedans like the C-Class or E-Class, you could end up upside down, meaning your car is worth less than what you still owe if you decide to buy it out. Some buyers try to game the system by assuming they'll walk away after the lease. But Mercedes knows the psychology. Once you're driving that car for 2 to 3 years, there's a good chance you'll want to keep it or get another one. They're banking on emotional investment, not financial logic. And unless you're cold and calculated with your numbers, it's easy to get caught in a cycle of leasing, upgrading, and never owning. Here's what you need to do instead. If you must lease, negotiate the residual value up to a realistic level so your buyout isn't overpriced. Or better yet, compare the total cost of leasing versus buying with a third-party calculator before signing anything, and always ask to see the residual value and money factor up front. Dealers often try to hide this in the fine print. If they won't disclose it, walk away. Let's keep going because it only gets worse from here. There's one thing Mercedes does well, it's technology. From digital cockpits to adaptive suspensions, they love packing in futuristic features that make your car feel like it's 5 years ahead of the competition. But there's one high-tech system in particular that has quietly drained bank accounts without most drivers realizing what hit them. And no, we're not talking about infotainment updates or navigation subscriptions. We're talking about Airmatic suspension. Airmatic is Mercedes' version of air suspension, and on paper, it sounds incredible. You get a smoother ride, adjustable ride height, improved handling, and that signature floaty Benz feel everyone talks about. But there's a massive problem with Airmatic, and it's not about performance. It's about cost and reliability. Because when this system fails, and it eventually will, the repair bills aren't just high, they're devastating. Most drivers don't realize Airmatic systems use a combination of air compressors, rubber bladders, valves, sensors, and control modules. It's basically a full-on ecosystem inside your suspension, and if just one part fails, it can cause a chain reaction that affects the rest. What starts as a small leak in the air strut can end up killing the compressor. The compressor fails. Now you've got a suspension error. The car slouches like a lowrider, and it's undrivable. You might be stuck with a tow bill and a multi-thousand-dollar repair estimate. And let's be clear, these issues don't just happen in older models. Airmatic failures have been reported in models as new as 2021. One owner of a GLE 450 said their rear end collapsed just 18 months into ownership, and the warranty, sometimes it covers it, sometimes it doesn't. If the dealer claims wear and tear or says it's an outside influence, you're footing the bill. Out of warranty, you're looking at $1,200 to $2,500 per corner, for OEM parts. Labor, that's extra. It gets worse. Some dealerships will push you toward replacing all 4 corners of the suspension at once just to be safe. That's a $7,000 to $10,000 job, easy, and unless you're driving an S-Class or G-Class where the Airmatic ride is truly next level, the upgrade isn't even worth it. For most mid-tier Mercedes models, a traditional coil suspension would have been just fine, and way cheaper to maintain long-term. There's also the hidden cost of resale. A used Mercedes with Airmatic, especially one approaching the 60,000 to 80,000 mile mark, is a ticking time bomb in the eyes of a smart buyer. Dealerships know this too. Try to trade in a model with a sketchy Airmatic history and watch how fast they lowball you. The second they see a suspension warning light on your dash or records showing replacement work, they'll knock thousands off your trade-in. Now here's what most people miss. Airmatic isn't always advertised clearly. In some models, it's bundled with other packages like the AMG line or luxury trim, so you may not even realize you're getting it unless you ask specifically. Some buyers think they're just paying for a nicer grille or upgraded wheels, when in reality they've added a complex and failure-prone suspension to their car without knowing. So what's the fix? If you're buying used, avoid Airmatic, unless you're prepared for the risk. Check the VIN and ask for the option codes to see if it's installed. If you already own a Mercedes with Airmatic, consider preventative maintenance, like inspecting the air struts and checking for slow leaks. Some owners even preemptively swap their Airmatic systems for coil conversions around the 70,000 mile mark to avoid disaster. Yes, it changes the ride feel, but it also adds peace of mind. Bottom line, just because it rides like a cloud doesn't mean your bank account won't crash hard. The next time a Mercedes ad flashes that ultra smooth ride, remember, luxury always comes with a price, and in this case, it might be your entire paycheck. Let's keep this momentum going, because the next trick Mercedes uses is buried deep in the car's computer, and it's one most drivers never even realize they're being charged for. This Mercedes software update could lock you out of features you already paid for. This next one feels more like something out of a dystopian sci-fi movie than a luxury car brand, but it's real, and it's already happening to Mercedes owners across the globe. We're talking about over-the-air software updates. Now, in theory, these updates are meant to improve your car, fix bugs, enhance performance, maybe throw in a new feature here and there, but Mercedes is using these updates for something far more sneaky, remotely controlling which features you can and can't use, even after you've paid for them. It gets worse. Mercedes, like several other manufacturers, has moved toward a model where even performance aids can be paywalled. In some regions, owners can now unlock faster 0 to 60 acceleration times or additional horsepower through paid software upgrades. But what happens when an update rolls out that disables that boost or increases the price to keep it active? You guessed it, your car's performance literally downgrades unless you fork over more money. This strategy isn't just frustrating, it's dangerous. Imagine depending on certain features like automatic high beams, lane keep assist, or blind spot monitoring only to find they've been disabled without warning because your subscription lapsed. And while Mercedes usually sends email notifications about upcoming changes, these can get buried in spam folders or missed entirely. By the time you realize something's off, you're already behind the wheel with a different vehicle than the one you bought. And let's talk about resale. What do you think happens when a buyer purchases your used Mercedes only to discover half the features are locked behind a paywall? It kills resale value. Most used car buyers aren't looking to pay ongoing subscriptions just to access basic features that used to be standard. Mercedes knows this, but they don't care, because they've already shifted the burden away from the initial sale and onto the long-term owner. Now, here's where the real trap sets in. Mercedes positions all of this as a benefit. They'll tell you it's about flexibility, customer personalization, and pay only for what you use. But let's be real, this isn't about flexibility, it's about control. Control over what you can do with your own car, control over your wallet, and control over when and how your vehicle functions based on software they fully own and manage remotely. The only real solution: before you buy, get everything in writing. If a feature is advertised as included, make sure it's listed as permanently unlocked. And if you're buying used, have the dealer verify what's active and what's been quietly disabled. Ask about which features require subscriptions and whether any recent updates might affect system performance. This is where car ownership is headed, where the hardware doesn't matter as much as the software permissions controlling it. And if Mercedes is already testing the limits of what they can lock and unlock remotely, Imagine what's next. How Mercedes quietly tracks and stores your driving behavior in ways that could affect your insurance, your resale value, and even your privacy. Mercedes is tracking your driving behavior, and you probably agreed to it. Most drivers don't realize that modern Mercedes-Benz vehicles are equipped with telematic systems. Fancy language for data recorders that track everything from your speed and braking habits to how hard you corner, how often you drive at night, how many passengers you carry, and even how long you idle. Some models go even further, logging GPS coordinates, voice commands, and driver preference data that gets stored and sometimes transmitted back to Mercedes servers. Now, why does this matter? Because Mercedes doesn't just collect this data to improve the driving experience. Like they claim in their marketing materials, they're building us behavioral profiles on drivers. Profiles that can influence insurance premiums, dealer negotiations, and even how your warranty claim is handled. There have already been reports of owners being denied coverage for mechanical failures after Mercedes analyzed driving logs and determined the car had been driven aggressively. That's right, your own car can be used against you to void your coverage, even if you were never in an accident or received a ticket. One C-Class owner in California had an engine issue just outside of warranty and was stunned when Mercedes declined goodwill assistance because their internal logs showed excessive redlining. That owner hadn't done anything illegal, but the data told a different story. And let's talk privacy for a second. A recent investigation into several major automakers, including Mercedes, found that many brands reserve the right to share vehicle data with law enforcement without a warrant. That's right. If something happens and the police want to know where you were last Tuesday at 2 p.m., Mercedes might hand it over. No court order necessary. That level of surveillance should raise serious questions about what we're really buying when we get into these high-tech vehicles. The bottom line is this: you're not just buying a luxury car anymore. You're buying a rolling data collection system. And while Mercedes advertises comfort, performance, and innovation, what they're not telling you is that behind the curtain, your every move might be under analysis. And speaking of things they're not telling you, what if I told you that the brakes in some Mercedes models might look fancy, but actually cut corners in a way that puts safety and maintenance costs at risk?